Nyumong Swanson. Dang at the Mingas. Then you want to and so
So the next outline is identifying the afflictions, and broadly 10 types of afflictions are identified, 5 which belongs to the category of view, and 5 which are non-view afflictions. But actually, experientially speaking, when it comes to afflictions, this is a category of phenomena which we are all very familiar with.
If we analyze carefully in our experience, then it's quite clear. If we pay attention, then I think it's quite clear. Most disturbances of mind is those negative emotions. We call nyumo. Lokang jena, rang ju neji kansa, muji bachinge, nyumo bachinge, nyumos, yaudo.
So these kaleshas or nyonmong in Tibetan, afflictions which as Asanga defined, these are mental states whose arising these are mental states arising these are mental states arising of which creates a disturbance within the mental continuum of the individual. So these are the afflictions or nyomong.
따왕가도 때민가스 때민이 요모사들이 카랄로코를 정신이다 그러 다른 시소래 그 가서래 네봤다나 숙성부 장한되겠지 배지면들이 따와르 주변 요몬들이 싫은 요모셔서도 와. 거기에 땅나는 짓고 그게 장되겠지. 자, 저는 이 루산에 그한다 가서 우리 싫은 요모들이 신지해요. So that the Indian Buddha could recruit us medals to Penashang and Yambu Chamba. The Jang Miduko Commercial. The Zutadilla, Sunjib in Yambu Sriare. That Shiron Yamoja the Union Buddha, Shiro around the commercial, Pagin in Sri. Quarter 방제 초고에 친실로 가서 내가 장하는 게 그다 싫어서 그렇지. 지금 민주산에 지금 뭐 사용하는 민주산에 거의 년배 초대에 그 가서 그게 싫어를 듣고 배주고 있어요. 자단 유목은 남이 치야 돼. 계속 그러셔.
So one important point to understand from the basic distinction that is drawn between those afflictions which belong to the class of views and those afflictions which are classified as non-view, I think there is an important point that needs to be understood here. For example, if you look at afflictions such as attachment, aversion, and so on, which belong to the category of non-view class, there the primary kind of modality of the emotions themselves are less cognitive, they are more affective states. Therefore, the element of cognitive ascertainment is lesser. Compared to them, the view, those afflictions which belong to the category of view, they are in fact described as distorted forms of intelligence or afflicted intelligence, sharab nyomongjen. And so these, in a sense, are more serious forms of afflictions. And because of their kind of distorted nature as some form of distorted intelligence, they also tend to have a greater kind of, a sense of cognitive orientation and also ascertainment, false ascertainment as well. And similarly, when you apply antidote to these different emotions, for the non-view type emotions like attachment or aversion, then there are specific antidotes that are presented in the teachings. For example, as an antidote to aversion or anger or hatred, a cultivation of loving kindness is recommended. As an antidote to dealing with attachment and particularly lust, meditation on the impurity of the body and so on is recommended. However, these forms of antidotes are really understood more as a kind of antidotes that act more in the form of suppression rather than total eradication. Whereas if you look at the view type afflictions, which are afflicted forms of intelligence, given that there are forms of intelligence, their antidotes must also take similar form of application of intelligence. So the principal antidotes here are more of a wisdom type practices, and so these are also antidotes which are eliminating antidotes, eradicating antidotes.
뉴모 차야를 송교하러 저는 일이 전에 그 측세 날이야 아니 지 대차다 셔당다 대전염으로 송셔버디 아니 그는 대장님 송셔버디 셔당님 좀 말했지 배낭을 좀 삼다나 아저씨 대장님 불려 믿고 보면 되게 믿고 보면 디 직선은 시단 패야 그냥 그 패지요. 다 시단은 뭐래 잡고 보면 생각이 야 잡고 고민도 전에 간소스네 잡고 패야 그냥 그 요래다. 그래서 드리브 전에 간다 차단 그냥 무슨 소리지 야가 직주 소리 좀 말해있어. 다 디모 그냥 무슨 원디 녀모 현다 상물로 레베게 가서 올베게 내용 그랬어. 가서는 뉴모디 상물로 자 아니 디모 된질이가 된대요 그랬어. 그래서 간다변에 차당 가서도 수다 냠용 단에도 사무실 담에네 야호 삼단의 폐지 즉 강성아주 시트하죠 그래. 차당께서 유들이야 그 유담바와 속도가人是居民对面讲是说能心意，可这么没不就落的就来下一步的话，这居民人心比上么快的呢？恰当说差不多就冲突了，可没得办，这是同意的。在这里的在呢，恰当结尾个多了，恰当基于余地的速度的这个，等把我这个落地跟子哪里啊？排就是越多些，还是差不多。到落快人子哪了？恰当长不子呢？子哪？된주군스나 여자의 말이 차당 라고를 그리나 미신데 간다 차당을 그리지면은 저 띠무 된지는 땡이 여자의 샤비스타르샤 사드리인도 띠무 그냥 무슨 샤바 된주가 되고는 샤 디셰베이나 디니 차당께서 싫어코라 가서로 봐 그게다 그 소르다지 즈바 아차고 쇼쇼루이 인도산에 아니 차당 쇼쇼를 다시 나를 체리고 볼라지 즉 통용 공기 디스도 시단계에 내걸이야 시단계에서 유디 체미도 버전도 통용 그 요아래 디 야적 구조 먼저 프로젝션 페이스도 콘치 남백에서 시가 말고 그걸 체리고식 타는 시가래 다디 만족하던 네, 가서 좋대. 남배심 나라라. 아더 취미직 남다고 줬다 세다. 다다르셔. 근데도
In Prasanapada, Chandrakirti, when commenting on the different functions of the antidotes of specific afflictions, although he may be speaking in the context of subtle understanding of afflictions according to the Madhyamaka Prasangika system, but he makes the following point. He says that the antidotes against the individual afflictions such as attachment and aversion or anger that are presented in the sutras, if you analyze them, if you examine them carefully, then these antidotes are very specific to the corresponding afflictions. And one, for example, like the antidote against attachment, which is the meditation on impurity of the human body, and the antidote against lust, that antidote will work only against lust and that type of emotions, but not against aversion and anger. Similarly, the meditation on loving kindness is presented as the antidote against aversion and anger and hatred, but that type of meditation antidote will only work against emotions belonging to that class, but not against attachment. And in fact, if you examine carefully, it is also conceivable that, for example, while countering one's lust and attachment, when one meditates upon impurity of the human body, there is at least in principle the possibility that this kind of meditation can in fact lead to a form of aversion to body. So further similarly, loving kindness meditation focused upon a specific individual, although may be helpful in dealing with aversion and anger and hatred, but there is also the possibility that as a result of that kind of cultivation, it can enhance one's attachment. In contrast, the antidote that is recommended against ignorance and delusion, which is the wisdom of emptiness, this antidote is applicable to all afflictions, whereas the other antidotes are effective only with respect to specific afflictions. So Chandrakirti makes this point. And for example, even from our own personal point of view, sort of experience point of view, if we try to understand the nature of the afflictions when they arise, we can at least make some estimation as to how delusion or grasping at true existence serves as the basis for their arising. For example, when we have strong emotion towards an object, say an attachment or anger, underlying that emotion or emotional reaction is an assumption of some kind of solid reality to which we are reacting to, which presupposes a notion of an independent or truly existing object. So here, therefore, the moment we are able to bring in the wisdom element and reveal the constructed nature of that object that we are reacting to, then the grip of our grasping tends to get released, lessened. So, for example, Nagarjuna in his 15th chapter on fundamental wisdom of the middle way, when defining the notion of svabhava, intrinsic nature, he says intrinsic nature presupposes something that is unconstructed and something that is independent. So, and the implication here is that when we grasp, when we emotionally react to something, we tend to presuppose that object that we are reacting to be independent and unconstructed, something that is solid and concrete. And therefore, the moment we are able to lessen that grasping at the solidity and dismantle that concreteness, then it has the effect of loosening that grip. So the wisdom which is presented as the antidote against delusion is the wisdom realizing dependent origination in terms of emptiness. And so here, in fact, an old scientist that I met a couple of years ago in our discussion, he told me that, and he's a psychoanalyst, and he told me that when an individual experiences a strong anger towards another person, at that moment, he or she projects especially when he experiences hatred, he or she perceives a quality of undesirableness in the object, and within that perception, 90% of the quality that we attribute to that object is a mental projection. So this is, of course, he's not talking from the Buddhist understanding, he's talking as a scientist, and this view fits really well with the basic Buddhist understanding of the arising of the afflictions, where underlying attachment and aversion are what is called false attention, false attentional processes, and which then gives rise to the emotional reactions. So the Buddhist understanding fits really well with the modern scientific understanding of these emotions as well. So then in the Lam Rim text, after having explained the nature of these afflictions, Tsongkhapa goes on to explain how these afflictions then give rise to committing of volitional actions, the karmic actions.
묘모 쩐지 머리 받아 직대 상황도 줄바 대 이소에 디샴다 디티다 그래 아주 돈이 무슨도 또 안네 라서서 용 말이스 편집에 서서 요 말이스 균수도 친구도 저기 디소아 안타 같이 다 비드라서 네 아주 비다 진다 대다른 묘모적인 머리보다 직대 상황도 줄바 대 고순부 속주소 미기 원금을 두잖아 소나마인 별에 쏘라스 동감지께와 진보동도 수르송어서 두잖아 소나미를 삼대도 수매베 세 뒤에 신의 소금나 미외라 소고 이노스.
Then we read in Tsongkhapa's text, he explains that therefore the individual who is under the power of afflicted ignorance and the egoistic view of grasping at self, through his three doors of body, speech, and mind, when he engages in actions of non-virtuous class, such as taking life of other sentient beings, then he or she will create the demeritorious karma. And however, if the individual engages in actions of virtuous class belonging to the desire realm, such as giving charity and observing morality and so on, and he will create a meritorious karma. And on the other hand, if the individual engages in the meditative practices of cultivating tranquil abiding, and which, on the basis of which he or she cultivates the form and formless realms, concentrative states, then he or she will accumulate the unwavering karma. So this is on page 306.
다양한 드라마 인간 그러지마 무셔직스마 친지쇼데 대단한 코알은 남자 두물 님이 수다데 건배 코에 편조 세버 순지미 니보야 많이 민중 매버체 민중 그 상관이 미 다음에 배터로 수소도배 실 수신 통해 맞아 지정심에 동배 과로 강섬 여등에 네 매버체 다 구조신 전도시주 셈니로 콤바를 쳐봐다 제외 개조 남니 당을 안 주는 미 민중 상관 남바다고 심배 양너지 장주고 섬지 심배 양너지 동리기 다와 강성 급하게 예봤던 여대배터는 신대와 든든지 매배터네 아주 개조할 제시부터 주제리 사티슈디 신그 툴로 때문에 가르마도 군중 랑가원도 콜로코이노스 다 되셔 아주 남기다 지금 소소 접신 자 개조도 제디 다 민주국 삼바도 즉 동리기 다와더니 장주고 섬도 숨 간다 남주 숨 그 섬지 뭐 주는 군중 랑가 가지로 되고
So then Tsongkhapa writes in page 305, it's the final paragraph, and this being the case, you might not have acquired through extensive meditative analysis of the faults of cyclic existence, the remedy that eradicates the craving for the wonders of cyclic existence. Also, you might not have used discerning wisdom to properly analyze the meaning of selflessness, and might not have become familiar with the two spirits of enlightenment. Under such circumstances, your virtuous activities, with some exceptions on account of the power of the field, would constitute typical origins of suffering, and hence would fuel the process of cyclic existence. This is an important point. What Tsongkhapa is explaining here is that unless our virtuous activities, whether it is engaging in generosity or observance of morality and so on, unless these virtuous activities are complemented by any of the three principal elements of the path, true renunciation, understanding of the correct view of emptiness, and the awakening mind, if our virtuous activities are not reinforced and complemented with any of these three principal elements of the path, then our virtuous activities will all become, except for some exceptions, further causes for our continued existence in samsara.
싱크토를 대봐서야지 빼나 시딩 배지치 고불루룩송 아니 대시 구수 징이 지발라 출신바에 심기잖아요. 자르산지 저하다무스 싱크토를 대봐서
So the exceptions that Tsongkhapa is referring to here, which he calls the power of the field. To give an example, Nagarjuna writes, I think this is in a friendly letter, Sukrela, where Nagarjuna says that, citing from a sutra, even with relation to the form of the Tathagata, on a mural, if one relates to this, even in a state of mind that is disturbed and agitated, and then even though someone looks at this in a state of mind that is agitated, but he or she will create the karma to have visions of the Buddha in future, in many Buddha fields.
세상 제주서버전 말은 10시대에서 되게 누가도 갔다디 제주서버전 말은 때문에 지신 나간 내가 봐도 지금 다가는 저한테 다 지금도 그 심수께 아니 통 퇴버도 참바도 잡아상게다 배용요 강은 너바체가 된다 대변중에 되었어 저 배제를 시우지다 닝도 게임 대체도 아니 참에서 소사서 또 세인들잖아요 그 누바지에서 동무이 누바지.
So this also touches upon the power of bodhisattvas as a field of merit, because the bodhisattvas are practitioners who dedicate their entire being and adopt this perspective which looks into infinite time frame and dedicates the entire being towards the benefit of all beings through an infinite time scale. And so because of this power of aspiration of the bodhisattvas, they also become powerful fields of merit. So any interaction with the bodhisattvas, whether by sight or through hearing or even mere reflection, contemplation of the bodhisattvas becomes a basis for creation of merits. And for example, in Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, he talks about how the bodhisattvas are those who, even when someone causes harm to them, the perpetrator of harm is ultimately led to goodness and happiness.
Tadi, kasa, tela soksu satche, ada dimero. Tadi ne chipo da nyingzum josu sa, tadi, tadi chiwe jen chiwe sem, tadi misi shirashu askemdo.
So the next outline is how you die and are reborn, and then this includes many further subdivisions, including such as the causes of death, the mind at death, and so on, and where the heat gathers, how you reach the intermediate state after death, and how you then take rebirth.
다시는 바로 누르스 돼야지. 바로 남샤임bre. 다 데미세 쉬었겠는데 봐. 다드네
So I shall not comment upon any of these outlines. For example,
what a question was I forget.
Okay, so we will take the questions now. Your Holiness, please tell us more about how the world's religions can exist in harmony. How the world's religions can exist in harmony. Can this harmony exist only if we all agree, if we agree that all religions ultimately lead their followers to the same place?
The same place, research.
The top just how much you and that the chulu tunje the any that chulu changmage tartu to observe the chigores labu or best.
Same place means heaven or these things, I don't know. Or moksha, salvation. That is difficult. There are a lot of differences. But broadly speaking, all major religious tradition, one same purpose. That is bring more compassion in our mind. If you seriously practice and follow one's own tradition. One of my Muslim friend, the one who told me, if you are a genuine Islam practitioner, he or she should extend their love as much as your love to God, to Allah. Their love extend entire creature as much as your love to Allah. So they usually use the Buddhist term, mother sentient being, entire sentient being, consider as dear as your own mother. And then, naturally, I think happier human society. And in such a level, I think all tradition, same. Same potential, same aim. And after this life, then different views. Some say heaven, or I think, and for the time being, in the kasa, the rogam kasa.
Coffin.
Oh, in coffin. At least, or sometimes some rest. So there's differences. They So now here, one thing I usually see believe, and also the telling people, the concept of one truth, one religion, and concept of several truth, several religions. These two things are contradictory. Now, because I think most cases in the past and also present, the conflict in the name of religion, most cases, not religion itself, but political sort of ambition,
power,
or political power, or economy, interest, or some cases even individual personal interest. So they manipulate religious faith or religious name. That's something different. Then another category, sincere practitioner, believe one's own religion and practice seriously. But then the problem, concept one truth, one religion. Other religions are not a genuine religion. So in that case, I think out of compassion, deliberately destroy the follow of other religion. It happened in the past. Today, I don't know. Like that. So therefore, now the concept one religion, one truth, and concept of several truths, several religion. Now these two contradictory things. Now how to overcome that? In the terms of individual, the concept of one truth, one religion is very relevant. A Buddhist, who find Buddhist way of approach is most effective, then in that case, Buddhism, for that person, Buddhism is the best way to transform the negative mind. On Christian, one person or Christian, the concept of God or Christianity is most effective. And so for that person, Christianity is the best. So only religion, only truth. So, like medicine, each different illness, we cannot say this medicine is best. We cannot say. We have to judge on best or not best according to illness. So similarly, the according individual mental disposition for this person, Christianity is best. To this person, Islam is best. For this person, Buddhism is best. So so each case, there are one truth, one religion is their suitable, most effective religion. Now in terms of 3 person or 2 person, one Buddhist, one Christian, then already several truth, several religion already there. So in this whole, Buddhist there, Christian must be there, some Islamic way. Practitioner must be there, some Jews. So already it's reality, several truths of religion there. So in terms of society, several truths of religion. I think that is a fact. So understand that. Then, now I think generally the pluralism, idea of pluralism of religion, already because we're increasing. So that's a healthy sign. So I think possible. Still we need more effort.
Your Holiness, with regard to the three persons of different scope, Kibusum, now, as initial, medium, and great capacity, how does one know at what level one's own capacity is? Is it an innate capacity, or is it influenced by an individual's practice, commitment, or desire? So in the section where Tsongkhapa explains the distinctions between the three persons of three levels of capacity, one of the points he raises is that by understanding the different levels of capacity, then an individual may avoid the error of, despite not having even the kind of the motivation of the initial capacity, may have the arrogance of thinking that I belong to this practitioner of the great capacity.
Many years ago, in India, I think in 60s, one of my friend, one lady, she told me, one European lady, I think English lady, I think, she in her dream, some you see different sort of bodhisattvas sort of image, you see happen. 상당히 들으면 지단이 사탕고 대신되는 상제 자동식스 여러다 지상 나 사탕 못 하면 로사 니는 왜 저주스버도 뭔가 쉬시 통고도사 아니 근데 내 타져도 뭐다 가사가서 무슨 말보다 자신이 근데 블람시 러시 말봐 어다 사탕 왜 있는데 상제 자통야 지 신제 요로 서 근데 이게 근데 뭔가 샤요를 생 뒤에 상상 연하면 상다 버렸어. 맛이 있겠노. 그런 거 내가 계획이. 엔 어디 사다 못 하면 됐어.
So this was in the 60s. There was this British woman who, in our conversation, told me that she was experiencing these very unusual dreams where she was having visions of these bodhisattvas and great beings. And because in the text, one of the kind of indications of a bodhisattva having reached the first level of bodhisattva bhumi is listed as having visions of various Buddhas and bodhisattvas. So she told me that maybe she had reached that level. So of course, as this text say that another individual cannot completely determine the level of realization of another person. And also, I didn't want to be too blunt to her, so I politely pointed out to her that the indications of someone having reached that level also includes other signs as well, such as the 100 Buddha fields will be shaken, and so all of these I told her so.
So from externally, from outside, from other person, unless it's some kind of the machine.
Unless you have some kind of superior cognition, a superior cognition that can perceive other people's mind directly.
So even
in the case of superior cognition, that is at the ordinary level, one cannot, even though one may be able to intuit certain aspects of others' mind, but one cannot still perceive another person's levels of realization.
So
So therefore it's very difficult to determine the level of capacity of practitioner from the external means. So it's really something that needs to be attested to from within one's own personal experience. So in one's case, by examining oneself carefully, if you still have strong attachment to money, fame, food, good life, and so on, then you still haven't reached the initial capacity practice.
Does
So similarly, if you find out that your attachment to the concerns of next immediate life is very strong, then which includes having admiration for the joys of cyclic existence, excellences of cyclic existence, then that means you haven't reached the middle intimate level of capacity.
So you yourself examine what is your way of thinking. Then you will know what is your stage, mental stage.
Can one be a practicing Buddhist? This is something to do with Buddhism in America. Can one be a practicing Buddhist and still be an active participant in the American system of materialistic rewards, career advancement? These sometimes seem to be in contradiction. So it really depends upon one's own state of mind and attitude. For example, if one's attitude is primarily that of motivated by wanting to bring about others' welfare, to work for others' benefit, then many of these other facilities become important part of the factors that would help you fulfill that aspiration. So for example, in the Lam Rim text, there is a section dealing with the preciousness of human existence. There is a description of an extraordinary form of human existence, and 8 characteristics of that are listed, and in which there is power included, there is a credibility of one's words, and so on. So these are included in the qualities as well. How does one find a teacher, one that has the qualities Tsongkhapa is speaking of? Does that teacher need to be a monk or a nun does one need to be a monk or a nun to be on the path? What if teachers are far away? Does one need to does one need to move, or are there ways for distance and intense learnings from a teacher?
진주 쓰기 말이야. 저는 동기 샤라마 진주 티고 되는 사람 동가 또 쓰이지. 저 가르쳐서 순산에 다 안도보도 아니 라마처럼 야레스 아니 컨디션가 있는 야레스 다 저나 메소나 다 로타세 하마레스 그렇지 쉬우도스 아니 너무 미치게 다 계획신이 레범을 치스 해도 돼 비슷해 인지비 미주 도와합니다.
This reminds me of a story from the Kadamba period when the Kadamba master Dromtonpa was passing away. He was lying with his head on the lap of his student Potowa, and as he was dying, Potowa was feeling very sad, and he wept, and the tear, one of the drops of the tear fell on Dromtonpa's cheek, and he looked up and said, "Why are you crying?" And Potowa said that up to now you have been my teacher, and I've had someone to seek counsel from and ask questions and so on, and now that you are dying, I will have no one to rely on. So, and that's why I'm feeling sad. And Dromtonpa said, "Yes, up to now I've been your teacher, but now, from now on, you should make the text be your spiritual teacher." This is a beautiful instruction. So there is no need to be physically near to a teacher. You can seek counsel from the text.
아니, 독지 저거는 최저 두시샤, 라면 두시 마셔야지.
So if it is necessary to have certain clarifications of certain points of the practices, then you can discuss with some other people. But initially, you don't need to relate to that person as your spiritual teacher, but rather more as a colleague, a Dharma colleague. Of course, if one wants to receive vows or take a Vajrayana empowerment, then one has to relate to that person in the form of a teacher, spiritual teacher. So here, it is very important to first examine whether or not that person is something that is, qualified for you. So for example, in the sutra, the Buddha states that the compassionate qualities of the Bodhisattva can be inferred on the basis of observing his behavioral expressions. So the Buddha nature, the inclination towards Buddhahood of the Bodhisattva can be determined, inferred from his external expressions. So here, one needs to observe the way in which the teacher conducts himself or herself, his behavior, his speech, and so on. And on that basis, one can test. So, and these examination and observation should not be based simply on doing it once or twice. For example, in the Tantra, in some of the Tantric texts, there's even a mention of, if necessary, taking 12 years to test your teacher. So as to the second question, you don't need to be a monastic member, a monk or a nun, to be on the path. Deji Pabonga Rinpoche, for example, wrote the following. He says that if one is capable, liberation can be found even while remaining as a householder. But if one is not capable, even though one might be remaining in the wilderness as a meditator, one may be creating causes for one's own future rebirth in the unfortunate realms. This is a question about what is meant by the term sentient beings. Does this include only the mammals, or does it include insects? Where is the line between what is a sentient being and what is not a sentient being? So here, the kind of determining the line is really understood to be whether or not that being has the capacity to experience suffering and happiness.
The late Francisco
Varela, no.
Varela. Today, I was getting to the Gulungi Chabatone, the Gulung Sorve. Kadachi Netching the Chitu Kasurbe, Potwindy. That day, sending being series, the show race, the receiver, that the chung the amoeba said secret.
So, in fact, we had this discussion many years ago, and Francisco Varela, the late Chilean scientist, was part of that discussion about what can be empirically identified as a sentient being and not. And so finally, one consensus that emerged is any form of organism that has kind of a self-propelling ability to move from by its own, an ability to move across space from one point to another point, and that was the consensus that emerged. And the smallest level of organism that we can identify as a sentient being at that time, when we were discussing, we decided it was amoeba could be included as a sentient being.
Mm-hmm. So mosquitoes and bedbugs show sentient being. We must respect, except occasionally. When we are the very peaceful sleep, then mosquito comes, then a short moment we forget about a sentient being.
In our country, many schools focus time, energy, and personal staff solely only on teaching the intellect. How can we encourage and instill the seeds of compassion and wisdom in our children?
Oh, now that's a serious matter. Now there are people, some university and some scientists, now several years, serious discussion how to teach a student from kindergarten up to university level, not as a religious sort of matter, but usually we call secular ethics through secular way. So that's very, very important. So we are really lacking just mere knowledge, lack of sense of responsibility, sense of compassion. Then knowledge can be destructive. That's very clear. So there's no guarantee. External rules, laws, these things also limited. So self-discipline is the key thing. So for that, the sense of responsibility based on compassion is very essential. Next. I think my public talk, right? Public talk, I think I will touch into these things.
Your Holiness, since I was a child, I've always wanted to know, how is it that there are more and more people on the planet if we have all been here since beginningless time.
그래, beginning.
통마매번 여배는 zamulin 날 통마매번은 아주 대 여배는 zamulin 날 미망으로 말도 더 가르친.
Of course, I think natural. Kasore, multiply. Two parents, at least, there's a few children. And children, again, few children. I think that's the nature of the world. The central being, also, that time
Of course, we have to take into account from the Buddhist understanding multiple world systems. So there are sentient beings in other world systems as well. Is it possible that a Buddha or a Bodhisattva may be a regular person, just ordinary person, such as one of the lay persons in the audience? Or must a Buddha or Bodhisattva manifest or reincarnate into an individual who is chosen or found as a Lama and chooses to become a monk or a nun? So the external forms of the manifestations of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas can be of many different kinds, in fact, including animals as well. So the external appearances, it's not fixed.
Yeah.
How can a person achieve inner peace?
Lamas says to us, Lamas said, Lecture can Guru said in Bay. Gurus, the Lamas Luzane, last to comment him. So that day, Yande, you go in that Konameva. Continue going Konameva. Dirisha. A Korean living Buddha says, did not. Do you have not? Guru said it isn't a Yamare.
So, in the case of the Tibetan term Lama, which is a Sanskrit Tibetan translation of the Sanskrit term Guru, if you look at the etymology of the meaning of this term, it refers to someone who is unexcelled. So, someone who could be unexcelled in terms of knowledge, in terms of understanding, in terms of realization. So this is something that one has to bear in mind. There is no meaning of the concept of a living Buddha in the Tibetan word Lama.
As Lama said, Lama doing the Lama Shayuramato, Cossack, the chief of Cossas for Chandra, that is not really. The one is Lama doing it, the Lama Chandra.
So the term Lama is actually a
Lama Giana, and Lama Ray. Lama never Lama Yoshimaro, Tamunis in the Tatus.
So, in fact, the Tibetan term Lama, a teacher, is a relative term, and it can make sense only in relation to a student. So, when there is a student, there is a teacher. So, unfortunately, later within the Tibetan society, the term acquired a different meaning of a certain hierarchy. So then you end up having labrangs, Lama households, which has lamas but not students. So therefore, I often point out that there can be four kind of permutations of relationship between Lama on the one side and reincarnate person on the other. So there can be someone who is both the Lama, teacher, and a reincarnate monk. There can be someone who is a reincarnate monk, but not a Lama. And there can be a Lama who is not a reincarnate person. Reincarnate person. And then there can be someone who is neither of the two. So there can be four permutations, possibilities here.
Mm-hmm.
Your Holiness, how can a person achieve inner peace when he or she is sensitive and compassionate of the suffering and pain of other human beings.
Tadi chojin didwa jawaji ganda junju nanya tongju nanya re ningji shu chambu ge yundu zane ani ningji di gembe ani symptoms di chingmu de ges chik dungen de bya yundu ges chojidwa.
So this actually relates to a question that is raised in Shantideva's text Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, where Shantideva raises the following point. He says that as a result of cultivating compassion, and when you experience compassion, isn't it the case that sometimes you take on additional suffering and pain, and that creates disturbance within you?
The Junju Nariya, any Shenji Dungan Samni, Sosorani dos Shiksim, da Kazor Bugay, Motive Soro, Kurk Sor Chavine, the Kocheveris, the Sundua. Or Tezondama Seve, rounding Dungan, knowing Luzane, Chikta, Chadok Chavis or some Lord Legua. The Ninji somebody, Dunzen Samtani. Those send a lot Jangni, the Shenji Dungel, Mississippi, a lot of Jangshi, and we design a volunteers on the Viredor. Just the Kudu this and two of the yard in a good dingy, charging the share of troth Germany. Nine volunteers, did you have a say?
So Shantideva responds to this by acknowledging that it is true that when you take upon someone's pain in the experience of compassion, you do experience a sense of disequilibrium, disturbance inside you. But he says that this is qualitatively different from someone experiencing his or her own pain. Because when you experience your own suffering, there is an element of involuntariness. There is no control in you when you experience. There is a lack of control, and there is involuntary aspects to this. Whereas when you experience suffering or pain as a result of cultivating compassion for others, there is, although disturbance, but there is a voluntariness in this aspect. And of course, part of that comes from the application of wisdom, but also because you have chosen to share in others' pain. So Shantideva says that these two are qualitatively different states.
But those sounds Rang Dungen Dane Jigda Nangrat the Peji, I saw to be successors. Ningji Sambe Peji and the Ningdos Tigus, Peji are. But on the same which she shares to the Lebanon Mojo, she says to her.
No.
Ningji Samale, they could issue shanks to do a chesims legal university.
So, and also one could possibly say that when you experience your own suffering, and in relation to your own suffering and pain, there might be a greater tendency towards experiencing more fear and kind of insecurity. Whereas when you cultivate compassion in relation to others' pain and suffering, instead of fear and insecurity, in fact, it may increase courage. And for example, some scientific experiments seems to suggest, some scientific studies seems to suggest that when someone deliberately cultivates compassion, those regions of the brain that are involved in motor activity tends to be more active. So it seems to suggest that there is a willingness to reach out and do something.
Next.
Would Your Holiness speak to the question of the language one uses in his or her prayers, in Buddhist prayers? I feel sometimes so lost when trying to say my prayers in Tibetan, and I feel that when I use English, it reaches my heart with a clearer intent and understanding.
This time you agree. It's much better.
In
our case, as you recite Sanskrit word without knowing the meaning. Much better recite in Tibetan. So you get the meaning, understanding of the meaning. So similarly, those who are English speaking, prayer in English or French or German, one's own language is much better.
So the next outline we'll be dealing with is the one on 12 links of dependent origination.
Tadi 점전대기 담바시 세네 또 송셔디 십차르던디 아니 군중 담바 뇽배 왕기 아니 레데 왕기 아니 동해기 다 ben다 초동에 초동에 댄싱의 풍부주야 달라지는 초동에 거시동에 아니 명한테 벌어서 와 근데 다 동해야 되디 직송도 와 자다 군중기 도진게다 다 디수 수용도 디슈기 아니 군중가나 동해든 가지고 있지 제니 디 룩도 그타네 아니 남자한테 받이디 숨겨요 남자 교진이 숨겨요
So now, when you look at the teachings on the 12 wings of dependent origination, effectively, and this is an elaboration of the Buddha's teachings on Four Noble Truths, where two sets of causes and conditions, causes and effects were presented. So in the 12 wings of dependent origination, beginning with ignorance, Buddha explains how the origin of suffering, including the afflictions and karma, give rise to the suffering. So for example, it begins with an affliction which is ignorance, which then give rise to volitional action, and then on the basis of that it creates the aggregate, which is the basis of actual feelings of suffering and pain, and which then leads to the sensory faculties, and then feelings, and culminates in the aging and death, including experiences of lamentation and sorrow and so on. So, in the presentation on the 12 links of dependent origination, Buddha presents the sequence in which, or the process by which, the origin of suffering give rise to the whole chain of suffering. And indirectly, what the Buddha is presenting is also the reversal process, which is that when you bring about an end to the origin of suffering, then you will also bring an end to the suffering itself. So indirectly, the Buddha is presenting the cause and effect set belonging to the enlightened class, the cessation and the path. So the importance of this is also underscored in the Buddha's own teachings. For example, in the Vinaya texts, Buddha advises the monks to have a depiction of the wheel of life that illustrates the 12 wings of dependent origination on the wall outside the monasteries and temples.
Janita, Tadela, Tadela Juni, the part of Tanzania is an Tambutiaba Kunumo, Nibajuba Lane, Tamadin domains, Numoche, Leche, Dumeche, Disumtiva. That Dumis is not taught to Mijomata to Jig to me.
So, if you look at the 12 links of dependent origination, these 12 links fall into three main categories of phenomena. The first 8 and the 9th belong to the category of afflictions, and the second and the 10th belong to the category of karma, volitional action, and the remaining belong to the category of suffering. So when we are talking about suffering here, we are not talking only at the level of sensations or feeling, but rather the truth of suffering.
다양 디디송로와 편직 다 두진 그다 편직이 그 강팡바 다디한 표지 동의동에 삼당 거면로 다 글씨 동에 그 댄칭에 지기 다 풍부 방대하지 편지도 방바 직치 다 동의디 용수민이야 주거다 루지다 다 주바 루지 그러면로 저자야 엔디 순두자네 다체 체니들이 거래 용들 체니 자다 되게 생능시 저디 지글이도 와. 다 세순공도 셔베이는 세순게 시도 와. 생각만지 아니 발바지 조직시 령도 와. 저자 연락준이 소인도 전에 다 되게 가서 그게 탐험고 쉬어요 그랬었지.
So also, if you look at the 12 links of dependent origination, some of the links referred to as the propelling factors, and some are referred to as the propelled links. And then there are also other links which are referred to as the completing links, and then the completed results or completed links. So in this case, what this presentation does is to explain the temporal sequence in which these 12 links occur, and also it provides an understanding of how this life and the future life are linked through these 12 links in the chain of dependent origination. So for one cycle of 12 links to complete, at least 2 lifetimes are required. So if it is longer, then there will be a third lifetime during which this one cycle of the 12 links will come to exhaust. So what this does is it explains the relationship between the causes in a particular lifetime and the effects in another lifetime.
Yeah. That's empty. 다 머리 버스 그러잖아요. 질 머리 버스는 다 미시바. 다 될래야 아르급 디다 야마 주니가 통매 머리 버스 그러잖아요. 몽zam을 샤야지 예예버리 다 있는 디 안도 조디 다를 진실로 올라질 시작이야래. So 다 엔 시다 머리 버스 자당이야. 내루 자당 차라요 있잖아요. 머리고 자당 차라요 되고.
So the first link in the chain of 12 links is ignorance, and although there are certain Buddhist masters who identify ignorance in terms of a mere unknowing, but here most Buddhist masters identify it as a more active form of misknowing. And so when we're talking about ignorance, we're talking about the fundamental ignorance, which is the first link within the chain of 12 links. Of course, as explained before, depending upon how one understands the ultimate nature of reality to be, how you understand the content of that ignorance will differ.
랜드를 머리 보다 데코레이션 머리 봤어 니샤 다디 뒤기구는 다 제베이는 니체 진짜 통매 머리 봤어 있는 데코레이션 머리 거래 말이야.
So the ignorance, which is the first link in the 12 links of dependent origination, broadly speaking, we can identify 2 principal types. One is the fundamental ignorance that is that is distorted in relation to the nature of reality, and then another type of ignorance which is distorted in relation to the law of cause and effect. And however, the second type of ignorance is more contemporaneous with the actual committing of the action, whereas the first type of ignorance is the real ultimate cause. So the second link, which is referred to as the volition, really refers to the karma itself. So the third link is consciousness, and in the consciousness, link of consciousness, there are two temporal stages. One is the causal stage, which refers to the consciousness at the moment immediately after the karmic act has ceased, and it gets imprinted upon consciousness. So that consciousness is the causal stage of consciousness link, and when new rebirth occurs as a result of that karmic action, the first instance of the consciousness at the rebirth stage is referred to as the resultant stage of consciousness. So the consciousness is divided into two temporal parts.
That day and this one, Namshi Chu, Chula Sungjans, this zone, Kunshi Kalamanotana, Kunshi, Kamanotana, Yinamshi sauce. Paja Kushiti, Lungi Jananga, Samzame, and Namshi saw Yashigare. The Tommy Shumalia, Tommy Mare, Tommy Shumal, Kunshi to be reported in the Yugua. Chet, the negative Kunshi to be. The Kunshi to be Nanga Tartu Yundu, Dangton Jani, near Goyaji, Shishachen, General Shi to Shishache, Dadu need to Shishache, the Induzane, the Paja Kushi, Lumadenjo, Induzane, Gemiki Paja Quasi, Shiko Lumadenjo race, down a semi negole, any Paja Kushi Yoko race, and the Kansa said to the negole Yoko, the needs in the Kansa Senshi Kushina, she said, Shay. Zozo Tartu, the Dadu need you. Shishache, the Tsongkhapas. Takushi Kamelame, Yinamshi.
Then, with relation to the third link of consciousness, Tsongkhapa states that although in the sutras 6 classes of consciousness are mentioned, but here when we talk about consciousness as a third link, he says that it refers primarily to foundational consciousness according to those that accept the notion of foundational consciousness, that is alaya. And if one does not subscribe to the notion of foundational consciousness, then it refers to the 6th mental consciousness, which is the basis. Basically, it is a consciousness which serves as the basis for the imprints of the karma that is carried over. So those that accept the notion of foundational consciousness are primarily the followers of what is known as the mind-only school, belonging to the that follows after the sutra. That follows after the scriptures, including Asanga. For example, Asanga presents various arguments to prove the presence of foundational consciousness, and one of the main premises for this is that one needs to posit a stable basis for the storing the seeds of the karma, and it needs to be a neutral state of mind, and it needs to be also a stable state of mind. And however, when advanced bodhisattva practitioner, bodhisattva enters into an uncontaminated state of a non-conceptual wisdom, and then at that moment, at that state, the imprints of the karma still needs to be carried on, or imprints still need to be carried on. And since no non-virtuous states of mind exist at that point, and there must be a neutral consciousness whose continuity must still remain, that must carry the seeds of the karma. And therefore, they posit this more stable continuity of consciousness, referred to as the foundational consciousness. But the one of the main the driving force behind this is the assumption that there must be a continuity of consciousness that must be findable when you search for its essence. And it is this. So when you search for the essence of the self, and then a true referent of the term self, there must be something that is substantial that can be found in the process, at the end of this analysis. So they posit foundational consciousness as being that a continuity of consciousness. However, those that do not accept the notion of foundational consciousness then will accept the sixth mental consciousness to be the repository of the karmic seeds, imprints.
So
these latter schools, these latter masters will then take the sixth mental consciousness to be constituting the identity of the individual, identity of the person. So, however, those Buddhist masters that reject any notion of intrinsic existence, svabhava, and they reject the whole approach of presupposing the need to find something substantial when you search for the essence of the person. For them, when you search for the essence of the person, the only fact that one can refer to as the person is the mere I, the label I. And therefore, from their point of view, although consciousness at the point when karmic action ceases, which gets imprinted, may be a temporary repository of that seed, but the long-term basis of these imprints are really this mere I. So the fourth link is name and form. So fifth is the sensory basis, sixth is the contact, seventh is feeling, and so I'm not going to elaborate on these.
That is Siva, or the standard Seva da Lambanibuti, Seva Slotu, Swati chatting. Lambas is on a Swati to count and Hayagi, Kasurbe, Sudor so chatting.
So the eighth and the ninth, eighth is referred to as craving, and the ninth is referred to as grasping. The ninth is referred to as appropriation, or the difference between these two is that the craving relates more to internal sensations and experiences, whereas the ninth is a form of attachment relating more to the external objects. Right? No. So ninth refers to the attachment to the objects which give rise to different sensations in us. So, so the ninth has an element of kind of, reaching out, wanting and yearning for that thing, which give rise to the feelings in us, the sensations in us.
다 시베 된들이야. 셀링가 쇠땀니. 그 영시 친구들이야 투진도 교변에 그 시베체. 다 될래야 셔와다 셔 시베 슈게 시베 니샤. 니시도. 셔 시베 시잖아요. 벌써 못 주고도. 벌써 주베 다 벌써 예방 온다 보이나? 벌써 주심베 제라 슈게 시베. 저도.
So the 10th is becoming, and this is actually belongs to the karmic category of karma, and it is an advanced state of karma where the karma has been fully activated and is in the state of becoming. And here the text again distinguishes between two stages. One is called a kind of a entering type of becoming, where the person, this is before the death, and the second stage of the becoming is referred to as the entered state of becoming, where the person has already taken the intermediate state of existence.
니버주버 레이노 숨버데다 레시비 시골 삼다 하지 레가 파자를 샤지 되는 용도가 레고를 가사로 그러나 레가 누가 레도 가리는 루기 레도 그치디 레디 가보다 그 레고를 미실고다 가서 그래 숙쟁이 레이는다 선배 레이는다 그 가사를 다고 파자 요데버디 쇠tem니 야고 누구 투신도 기분 내걸래 내가 야마로 봤다. 저다 레크 레시비시비 균시. 들으셔야지. 양다 레지 박자라니 박자를 12명이다 그랬어.
So although the text says that the second and the 10th belong to the class of karma, but to be more specific, the 10th is not really a karma as such, because karma refers to an action, and the action has long ceased in the past, whether it is verbal or physical or mental, the action has already ceased, and it has remained in the form of an imprint or seed. So the 10th is a state where the karmic imprint has reached a point of great potency, where it has become activated. So one can understand the continuum of the karma in terms of successive stages of this imprint, or one can understand the continuum of the karma in terms of continuation of the disintegrated state, shikpa, of that karma. But in any case, it's not the karma itself, because the karma has long ceased. It's the continuity of the karma. So 11th is the birth, and 12th is aging and death.
유득 남시정도 바자거는 여대버테 급직을 셀랭 쇠때문에 시베 된데도 다디 어레 다껴와 지기 뭐이나 배지 셀랭 쇠때문에 시베 직소지 다껴와 잔중의 집이나 껴와 잡해야 내지 뭐이나 디껴를 거는야 배지 야 셀랭 쇠때문에 시베를 죽으면서
So if we think about how these 12 links in the chain of dependent origination comes to complete with relation to individual cycle in the birth in samsara, for example, as a result of a particular karma, if it propels only one rebirth, then just before the rebirth, the karmic imprint will be activated and made, its potency brought to the fore, and then the next rebirth takes place, and then that cycle of 12 links comes to exhaust. But sometimes you can also have a single karma propelling or projecting 100 lifetimes. So in which case, although the earlier links may be one and the same links, but the 10th link, from the 10th link onwards, each birth will have one becoming, which is the karmic stage, and then the remaining links.
전에다 내가 저기 래 남식도 바자거니 디 셀링 쇠머데베 발라야 참처럼 먹고 줘야 용구로 봐. 다 디링다 잔다 댄지 차지부 되게 가서 우리 그게 안다 교환의 것이 받대 몸이 공라 나야 머리에 왕게 두시길래 먹고 써로 그런 건 아주 다른 추진 사업에 안 돼도 머리에 왕게래 배지 먹고 샀어요.
So one can also, thinking about the way in which the 12 links belonging to one cycle of rebirth comes to complete, one can envision the scenario where, although one has the fundamental ignorance has arisen, which then give rise to a volitional action, and a karma is created, but then before the karma, this particular karma is activated through craving and grasping, it is conceivable that before that happens, a whole new cycle of 12 links can be created. So a new instances of fundamental ignorance arises, which then leads to another karmic action, and then it creates a whole chain. So that before one round of the 12 links is completed, one can imagine many different cycles being created in between. So, for example, from this morning up to now, during this day, when we were listening to the teachings and spending time here in this hall, as a result of fundamental ignorance, we may have created many new karmas, which will have its own cycle.
뒤슈도 말로다. 편지도 방법 사이트 뭐 편지도 줍지사. 뒤는 뭐 좀 뒤슈데 난 던진 돈지도 겨 지구 루에 야나도 전에 것이 대단한 님이 송소로선. 다 뒤슈데 대단나 사실. 랜더로 뭔가 머리에 군내랑배 머리 미기에 네 두지기 남실 랭에 파자샤는 예수숨진 제두진 남신의 소야파 두룬도 쳐봐대 쓰는지야 쇠다발래 쇠다베 레지 파자 투진도 주는 치망년도 깨가숨 줄라 양 다음에 저는 뭔가 머리에 군내 랑배 다 당구때 대코너니 뭔가 머리에 시체니 뒤지 군노라 랜드는 머리에 버체니 대군내 랑배 수나마이 벨라사야 돼你说다 샴데 두겨와 사는 저부터 왔다 진짜 규미가 와는 사는 저부터 얘기를 수시셔 대단하야 다음에 저는 몸에 머리에 꾼을 랑베 던감기 뒤에 추름도 소베 손남기 도시다 감 공매 뒤에 신의 공부서 미외래 도시기 남시라 라상부 파자셔는 되베된로 감 공매 타이 제두기 남신의 소야버를 잡아대 세네야 소테베 레제 봐서 수는 치면 된로 다도 깨워서 루보 송샤 Yes.
So in this context, Tsongkhapa writes on page 321, the final para, he says that alternatively, motivated by ignorance about the meaning of self. This being, the penultimate paragraph. This being the case, actualization should be understood as follows. Non-virtuous compositional activity that is motivated by ignorance about karma and its effects deposits latent propensities of bad karma in the consciousness. This makes ready for actualization the group of factors of a miserable rebirth that begins with a resultant period consciousness and ends with feeling. Through repeated nurturing by craving and grasping, these latent propensities are empowered, and birth, aging, and so forth will be actualized in subsequent miserable rebirths. Alternatively, motivated by ignorance about the meaning of selflessness, meritorious compositional activities such as ethical discipline within the desire realm or invariable volitional acts such as the cultivation of meditative serenity within the higher realms deposits latent propensities of good karma in the consciousness. This makes ready for actualization the group of factors beginning with resultant period consciousness and ending with feeling for respectively a happy rebirth in the desire realm or a rebirth as a deity in the highest realm.
This one? No. That Disham district no hinders. That didn't want to change. Ludu, Sumbutale, Nijun, nearly doing Jansa, Sijitima, Truni. This way. No. Tedder to you call a chamber. Suddenly, go to children, glass. Give a bottom of them, give me a less subway, pension, and Nemi Mochushin. Never much of that is selling you certain they want to tend to the Gandru Chambertown. Rajamolong, Soji, Tusu, subway, pension, Tangli, and Deva Yajang. Numum maybe call a traverse chula, never temple, Numum Bala, Tarasune, Gobala, Zombajawa, Guru, Sen, the other one.
So there is another passage that I want to read from Tsongkhapas' text where he writes on page 322, it's the third paragraph after the citation from Nagarjuna, when he writes, when you reflect on your wandering in such a way through cyclic existence, the 12 factors of dependent origination are the best method for generating disenchantment with cyclic existence. Contemplate your projecting karma, the virtuous and non-virtuous karma that you have accumulated over countless eons, that has neither issued forth fruition nor have been eradicated by antidotes. When craving and grasping in the present lifetime nurture them, you wander through happy or miserable realms under their control. Arahats have immeasurable projecting karma accumulated when they were ordinary beings, but are free of cyclic existence because they have no afflictions. Once you have reached a firm conviction about this, you will hold the afflictions to be enemies and will make an effort to eradicate them.
That's the issue there and issue looking, issue down. Mutuni. There is a single Pujuani, then the devil Junior, Yana Junior, Nila, Lojong Zazing. Lam Rim Yang, Gibusum Lam Rim Yang, Te Donju Sambarana, Zatos. The country restaurant, Tea, Nandru Yana, Juniki, Donju Sambani, that Lander Lamombe, Maribe, Wangi, Sonamai, Lasani, Nandru Jawa, Payagi, Yana Juni, Tea, Gibuchumi Shorche. Tene, Takuranilum, Maribe Kunalandi, and Mu, because of Sonamilla, Mu, Lasani, Dandru Payadi, Gibu Digchorche. Tadra Ranga Yamla Bane, Mariju, Simjan Namjan, Yanaju, you can call Chambala, Chambadi, indicated, Tenavision to Sanji Kovala, Tomdu, Jonathan, Taylor Lava, Gibu Chimbu Koto, Chato, Sonsha. Sajusum with Lamrimdi, then they are not unique to Chaji, Pujun Lamrima, dear Sari.
So immediately after what we have just read, Tsongkhapa writes, with regard to this, the great spiritual mentor, Pujungwa, engaged in mental training or mind training based solely on the 12 factors of dependent origination and made the stages of the path simply a reflection on the progression through and cessation of these links. That is, he explained that a reflection on the progression through and cessation of the 12 links of miserable realms is the teaching for a person of a small capacity, and that a reflection on the progression through and cessation of the 12 links of the two happy realms is the teaching of persons of medium capacity. The teachings for a person of great capacity is to assess their own situation according to these two practices of persons of small and medium capacities. They then develop love and compassion for living beings who have been their mothers and have wandered through cyclic existence by way of the 12 links, train themselves in the wish to become a Buddha for the sake of these beings, and learn the path to this end. So what Tsongkhapa is explaining here is that there exists a Lam Rim instruction based on Pujungwa's teachings, where Pujungwa correlates the teachings on the 12 links of dependent origination within the context of the practices of the three scopes, three capacities.
Yeah. 다들 yana 중이 가서 전에나 중이 거네. 삼바지 주세. 다들 주대. 다들 좀다. 다시 뒤집은 증사를.
So with that, the explanation of the stages of the path relevant to the person of intermediate capacity is completed.
다 15 타버져 남녀를 짓다라고 왔어요. 다 돼. 아니
The fourth outline of that section is really ascertaining the nature of the path to liberation, and it is under this heading the presentation of the practices of the three higher trainings are presented.
태양 다 15코에 자와 아니 띠무 그다 치기하래 띠무 머리 거야 다 지용 시합에 있는 등신 강사가 등신 송도 다 러시 매번 마에 아니 슝감네 다 리그에 봐 땅나 10차워 더 잡아나 송유도 전에 다 강사가 등신的최이 등신이 부터 미국 출신면다 마도 진짜 좀 샤돼요. 다들 이메일도 전에 다 집에서 된지가 머리부터 샤요 거예요. 대양 강사가 등신 직도 영향이 최이 등신 시천이 연구해요. 후물로유도 전에 나오냐별로 철교에 있는 전에 풍부 등신 로틱 싫으셔 저는 잘 때는 답에 나오냐베 뭔지 직다 가사 등지 게임으로 들으셔도 와 자 드리면 이르잖아요 또 대인연보 남자자는 아니야 나 참소 먹는 개매치 신는 이거 사주면 소원하지 참박 공부도 인지 공부도 대수 제기 아니 된지는 태가 넣고 말이야 다 된지는야 태가를 넣겠는데 미국 찍으면 진당 원가도 주된 담에도 싫어 버시기다 넣는 거야. 자, 드리면 이르잖아요. 다 러버스문하고 쪼디 싫어버려봐. 담에도 싫어버려봐. 대이 말다. 다 담에도 싫어버려봐. 대이니 다 지도하다가 상동스 러버 있는 상제배 다 통모임에 차가지. 레마도 샤야 시라가 나버전지 야 상동도 무디고도 통모임 말이에요. 다 대대비 아니 지도하다가 상동 깨봐라. 아니 미국 땅에라 간다 돈이 똑같은 님이셔고 돈이라 산한 터버시고요. 아래 돈이라 산한 터버요. 아래 시내가 좋아지고요. 아래 자 드리면 이르잖아요. 다 가다 돈이를 상동 지하공지 장배 유신장 때와 톱돼야지 그것도 대영화래야 신의 토지 그거야래 지리신의 지난 투모이 말이 레디네 미국을 섬 제주도 접에 내제 장배 에는 유신장 때와 맞아봐 지하도지라면 유신장 때와 기도야 매발해 전에는 유신장 지하도지라면 유신장 대회 신배 에는 가서 그게 그런 대코너니로 수수시비 실을 지도도 bar 항동 처리야. 지도도 bar 항동 겁니. 아니 림베림베기 니난 누베. 아니 다 산한 통해야지. 저들이 주시네 메서메도 와. 메서메도 와. 다 제대비 신에 두바양. 아니 신에 두주 자와로디 참배 중수리. 참바다 시신기 중수. 다네 용기하래. 저들이 뭐 인도산에 아주 고순 밤에를 샤샤바디 전시 다도 심버체도 스테지 디 전시기다 내가 구야게 정다로고 통화되는 거 소용 거래 니네 난게 남이 참모 시와라 치 남이 라고디디 도박 먼저 조고 그래 다 드리면 인도산에 거라 르 로다로 거라 내가 지 룡하게 영어 라고도면야디 도박이 주름듯이 되네 이 영어 처음 동해야 돼 신내듯이 될 때네 아니 드네부터 실시하네 아니 담에도 싫어 거면 돼 말이 다 담에도 싫어 거면 소원도 가다 담 지도도 항동 뭔도 깨네 아니 다 돈이 무슨 또 배다 파만 깨야 돼 독스 제고요래
So with relation to the explanation of the three higher trainings, as we discussed in the teaching on the 12 links, the root of cyclic existence is identified to be ignorance, and the nature of that ignorance is in general Buddhist explanation identified as grasping at self-existence, and so here. Self-existence, self-grasping primarily refers to grasping at the self-existence of the person. And however, according to the Buddhist school that applies a critical analysis in the most refined manner, then the understanding is that the difference between the selflessness of phenomena and selflessness of person is not a function of subtlety of the understanding of no self, but rather the difference between the two is that of the subject upon which the selflessness is qualified. And therefore, when it comes to the actual content of these two selflessness, there is no difference of subtlety. So from this perspective, then the root of cyclic existence, which is ignorance, here refers to grasping at true existence of all phenomena or inherent existence of things. And here, so even in the case of grasping at self-existence of person, which from the point of view of first person takes the form of grasping at an I, the thought I am, which is referred to as the egoistic view, grasping at the thought I am, jikta, that grasping at I really arises on the basis of grasping at the physical and mental aggregates. So, so therefore, the antidote against this ignorance needs to be a state of mind that directly opposes the perspective of this grasping. So, for example, Dharmakirti states in Pramanavartika, Exposition of Valid Cognition, where he says that because loving kindness and so on and do not directly oppose the perspective of ignorance, and they cannot act as eradicating antidote against ignorance. So what is needed is an antidote that would directly oppose the perspective of the ignorance itself. And what is required is the wisdom realizing no self, selflessness, So here, the wisdom realizing no self and grasping at self both are focused on the same object, but they perceive the same object in a diametrically opposed way. And it is that type of antidote that needs to be cultivated. However, therefore, when it comes to defining the path leading to liberation, among the three higher trainings, the principal path really is the path of wisdom. And here, wisdom refers not just to a realization of emptiness alone. It needs to be, the realization of emptiness has to occur at a very advanced level where there is a total clarity in one's understanding of emptiness. And that kind of realization of emptiness with total clarity can, in a non-conceptual manner, can only arise if the practitioner has gained special insight, with relation to emptiness. And the special insight with relation to emptiness can only arise if he or she has attained physical and mental suppleness and the bliss that are associated with that is derived on the basis of application of analysis. However, in order for that to occur, first of all, there needs to be a basis, foundation, which is the tranquil abiding shamatha, wherein the individual has attained physical and mental suppleness brought about by application of the single-pointedness of the mind. And so, therefore, practice of attainment of calm abiding or tranquil abiding becomes indispensable. Therefore, the second training, which is the training in concentration, becomes essential. And however, in order to attain this training on concentration, which involves gaining freedom from various internal distractions, one needs to first of all, and also the attainment of the tranquil abiding and this advanced level of concentration is really a function of the application of mindfulness and awareness or meta-awareness or introspective awareness. And so one needs to therefore refine these two faculties and apply them, which would then lead to the attainment of tranquil abiding. So in order to do that, on the first stage, one must cultivate these two faculties, and this is done by observing sound ethical discipline, where one learns to apply the faculty of mindfulness and awareness with respect to one's own behavior and action, so that one fine-tunes the application of these two faculties, so that initially one learns to turn away from the external gross levels of distractions, and then eventually leading to turning away from the internal distractions. Therefore, the first training, which is the higher training in morality, becomes essential. So it is in this way that three higher trainings, the practices, the path of the three higher trainings becomes indispensable as the path to liberation.
Yeah.
So with that explanation on the stages of the path pertaining to the middle scope or intermediate scope is complete.
Thank you, Chimbu. And the Gamkashishton. Thank you, Chimbu. The Disundua. That was a busy queue, no? Tell me you were queue.
Did you bring the second volume with you?
No. Dua.
So we'll read from the beginning of the volume 2.
Jenny and the Dang Godwa Lomoche did this one. At the Lubjing Long Transfer did lungka niji ma sungni lujin toswa ta de shude dishwa dinna tata gibu indi kyama tata yin sheso se ta de shude jermis rang sungdi 대실 랑생기 레과 탐제기 중에 그거 탐제세 매 개백이 꾸기 되게 남천부 통화다 퇴바다 참바다 레베장 로군지 수순 요와 생기 전도 슈베 랑게된 마상 매버 샬라 루베 탑케바 첨보다 내베 태보 첨보는 죽도 여바니 깨모 다게 녀바 레고는 녀도 냠도 삼라 기브제 지유이 택배 천들 죽버 자오 누구시 시비도 왔디
So in the opening section of the stages of the path relevant to the practitioner of greatest capacity, Tsongkhapa cites two quotations from Nagarjuna's it's not Nagarjuna, Chandra Gomin's letter to a student. And so after the second quotation, he writes the following. He says that, therefore, this is on page 15 of volume 2. Therefore, the Mahayana is the origin of all the goodness of self and others, the medicine that elevates all troubles, the great path traveled by all knowledgeable persons, nourishment for all beings who see, hear, remember, and come into contact with it, and that which has the great skill and means that engages you in others' welfare, and thereby indirectly achieves your own welfare in its entirety. One who enters it thinks, "Wonderful, I have found what I'm looking for." Enter this supreme vehicle with all of the strength and an excellent person that you have. Strength of an excellent person that you have.
Yeah.
So these words are really powerful.
자상가 준준의 소야디 대외 경의 군세에서 랑신기 레포 탐지 중에 그거 탐지세면 진 소인도잖아요. 다들 대외 경의 군세 전주성기 다셔네. 내내 대화를 넣어라. 심시수시 기론도 son대야 되려도 와.
So when Tsongkhapa talks about how it is the source of the goodness of self and others, how it is the medicine that dispels the downfall of all beings, and how it is the great path that has been traversed by all the great beings, this really echoes a stanza from Shantideva in his Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, where Shantideva writes that, therefore, one should ride the horse of bodhicitta, the awakening mind, that dispels all forms of weariness and exhaustion, or weariness and discouragement, and travel from a place of joy to a place of joy. And what intelligent person would not venture on such a journey?
다른 시간에 전복 공부 아니 거기서리 잡는 날이야. 년줄남는 도지시 기우충 두야디지 전주성부터 도와. 년줄남는 도지 틀리라는 접전라스. 당원도 두야지 tip시. 거심매번 전집에서 기분 증기 타박 두야지. 다 대천배 아니 남진 더도 남진 개하고 봐. 단 두야 전주성들은 요구야레스. 다음에 치코를 쉐벤 팀다. 전주성스는 전주 두야기 두 마상하면 다 쪼들에서 봐. 쪼들에서. 다 대두베이나 딜냐면 챵베이나 아니 기부 중을 두야기 뭔도 달라도 톱토그리 기분 증기 두야기 탈배고 봐. 달라도 두용 그래 사실.
Similarly, in Maitreya's text, which is a aspirational prayer related to the Bodhisattva Maitreya, there is a stanza which reads that describing the quality of bodhicitta, the awakening mind. It says that bodhicitta, the awakening mind, is that which brings to an end the road, the path to the lower realms. It opens up the path to the birth in the fortunate realms, and it also leads someone to a state beyond aging and death. And to the bodhicitta, I pay homage. So the point being made here is that although the kind of the primary purpose and ultimate aim of the practice of awakening mind is to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings, but if one engages fully in the practices of bodhicitta, then all these other aspirations, the aspirations of the initial capacity, which is to attain favorable rebirth, an aspiration of the middle capacity, which is to attain freedom from cyclic existence, all of these can be achieved in the process.
다양한 정주것은 기도 전에 기부 충분히 그 남들도 더네 정주것에서 수기야 지도면 와야고 거 가서 그래 정주것은 두번 인생 셈치다 두번 인생 셈도 영화리야 현주토니를 놓고 요하래 정주토니를 놓고 요하래 다 현주토니를 놓디 영야가 싸워로디 닝지를 도용교하래 닝지 영야가 심어로디 닝중사바가 도용도 와 닝중기 치면낭셔도가 정화로 처리낭셔도야 되디 로고도 와 저는 거래야 거래베 윤재긴 저와 유저바라는 샤디디 로 장유도 전에 거래베 몇신도 로가지 근데 인도 람림 나리에 기부숨 송유도 전에 기부 충분히로 투모벨람 사자음도 와 기부 충분히 랑스만 매베체 기부 침부 람게 먼저 그래 두소주야 지금 인도산에 두소주야 정주고 쌤 그 체도 고민하지 뭐 인도산에 얘는 기부 충분히 투모벨람 샤송이야래.
So having said that, we have to also recognize that there is no possibility of just jumping straight to the bodhicitta practice without actually going through the practices of the initial and middle intermediate capacity. Because, for example, if we look at what is meant by awakening mind, bodhicitta, awakening mind is defined in terms of a state of mind which is composed of two aspirations. And these are aspiration for the attainment of Buddhahood and aspiration to bring about other sentient beings' welfare. So when we talk about the aspiration to bring about others' welfare, and here the principal element is the cultivation of compassion. And as we discussed before, attainment of a realization of great compassion depends upon realization of having a true renunciation. And the true renunciation, which is the aspiration to attain, genuine aspiration to attain freedom, requires initially turning away from excessive concerns about excessive attachment to the concerns of this life. So you can see that in terms of the progression of the mind and the stages of development, there is a kind of a sequence. And so one cannot just jump onto bodhicitta practice and ignore the practices of the initial and middle capacity. Therefore, in Tsongkhapa's text, when the practices, stages of the path of the initial and middle capacities are described, he doesn't present them as something that is independent of the practices of bodhicitta. Therefore, he characterized these practices as stages of the path shared with the person of initial capacity, and stages of the path shared with the person of middle capacity. And the point here is that these practices are preliminary stages to a bodhisattva practitioner whose ultimate aim is to engage in the practices relevant to the person of great capacity.
So, good night. 디 제메는 심이 싸움 거리나 차당 속 잡고 쭉冲突 그럼 믿음 봐.这是통합니다. 자, 이 전에 차당 계획 그들의 차당 기유 유지의 속도로지 땜바워지 로텍은 지나니야. 패지를 예도지. 패지자도 또 로컬은 지나라. 차당 참고지는 진단 된주군 지나 예도이 말이. 차당 라고를 컨트리나 미신데 간다 차당을 컨트리지면 있는 자 띠무 된지는 땡데 예도도 서비스하죠. 사들이인도 띠무기냐고 손샤바 땡주고 되고는 자 디셰베이나 디니 차단께서 싫어코라 가서봐 그게다 그 훌다지 즈바 아차고 쇼쇼로 이베인잖아요. 아니 차단 쇼쇼라 다시 나는 체리고 볼라지 즉 통용 공기 디스도 시단계에 내걸이야 시단계에서 유디 체미도 보시면서 통용 그 요아래 디 자적 구조 mental projection 있어도 콘치 남백에서 시가 말고 그걸 생각을 하는 시가래 다들 만족하던 데 가서 주대 남백좀 나라라 아더 취미지 남도가 줬다서 다다르셔 근데도
in Prasanapada, Chandrakirti, when commenting on the different functions of the antidotes of specific afflictions, although he may be speaking in the context of subtle understanding of afflictions according to the Madhyamaka Prasangika system, but he makes the following point. He says that the antidotes against the individual afflictions such as attachment and aversion or anger that are presented in the sutras, if you analyze them, if you examine them carefully, then these antidotes are very specific to their corresponding afflictions. And one, for example, like the antidote against attachment, which is the meditation on impurity of the human body, and the antidote against lust, that antidote will work only against lust and that type of emotions, but not against aversion and anger. Similarly, the meditation on loving kindness is presented as the antidote against aversion and anger and hatred, but that type of meditation antidote will only work against emotions belonging to that class, but not against attachment. And in fact, if you examine carefully, it is also conceivable that, for example, while countering one's lust and attachment, when one meditates upon impurity of the human body, there is at least in principle the possibility that this kind of meditation can in fact lead to a form of aversion to body. So further similarly, loving kindness meditation focused upon a specific individual, although may be helpful in dealing with aversion and anger and hatred, but there is also the possibility that as a result of that kind of cultivation, it can enhance one's attachment. In contrast, the antidote that is recommended against ignorance and delusion, which is the wisdom of emptiness, this antidote is applicable to all afflictions, whereas the other antidotes are effective only with respect to specific afflictions. So Chandrakirti makes this point, and for example, even from our own personal point of view, sort of experience point of view, if we try to understand the
돈이 웃음도 또 하네. 레서 사용 말이스 펜식에 서서 요 말이스. 균수도 친구도 저기 디소한. 안타가 치다래.
Pydra's.
네, 아주 py다 진다. 대다른 묘무적인 머리보다 직대시한 원도 줄바 대 고순부 속주소 미기 원금을 누잖아 소나 많이 별래 소라스 영감 지켜와 진보동도 수를 송어서 누잖아 소남질 해다 삼대도 수매베 세 뒤에 신의 소금나 미외라 소고 이노스.
Then we read in Tsongkhapa's text, he explains that therefore the individual who is under the power of afflicted ignorance and the egoistic view of grasping at self, through his three doors of body, speech, and mind, when he engages in actions of non-virtuous class, such as taking life of other sentient beings, then he or she will create the demeritorious karma. And however, if the individual engages in actions of virtuous class belonging to the desire realm, such as giving charity and observing morality and so on, and he will create a meritorious karma. And on the other hand, if the individual engages in the meditative practices of cultivating tranquil abiding, and which, on the basis of which he or she cultivates the form and formless realms, concentrative states, then he or she will accumulate the unwavering karma. So this is on page 306.
다양한 드라마 인간 그러지마 무셔직스마 친지쇼데 대단한 코알라 남자 두물 니미수다데 권배 코에 편조 세버순지미 니보야 많이 민중매체 민중그 상관이야 다음에 배터로 수소도배 실 수신도야 맞아 지정심에 동배 코알 강섬 여등에 네 매체 다 구조신 전화실주 셈니로 콤바를 쳐봐다 대외 개조 남니 당을 안 주는 유 민주국 삼번 넘버다고 심배 양너지 장주국 섬지 심배 양너지 동리기 다와 스페셜 강성급에 예받담보 여대배터는 신대와 든들지 매배 터네 아주 개조카 제셔부터 주제리 사티슈디 싱그 툴로 때본 가르마도 군중 랑가원도 코에 콜로코 있노스 다 되셔 아주 남기다 지금 소소 접신 시작 개조도 돼야지 또 민주국 삼바도 즉 동리기 다와더니 장주국선도 좀 간다 남주 숨 그스버지 뭐 주나 군중 랑가 가지로 돼요
So then Tsongkhapa writes in page 305, it's the final paragraph, and this being the case, you might not have acquired through point that needs to be understood here. For example, if you look at afflictions such as attachment, aversion, and so on, which belong to the category of non-view class, there the primary kind of modality of the emotions themselves are less cognitive. They are more effective states. Therefore, the element of cognitive ascertainment is lesser. Compared to them, the view, those afflictions which belong to the category of view, they are in fact described as distorted forms of intelligence or afflicted intelligence, sharab nyomongjen. And so these, in a sense, are more serious forms of afflictions. And because of their, kind of distorted nature as some form of distorted intelligence, they also tend to have a greater kind of, a sense of cognitive orientation and also ascertainment, false ascertainment as well. And similarly, when you apply antidote to these different emotions, for the non-view type emotions like attachment or aversion, then there are specific antidotes that are presented in the teachings. For example, as an antidote to aversion or anger, or hatred, cultivation of loving kindness is recommended as an antidote to dealing with attachment and particularly lust. Meditation on the impurity of the body and so on is recommended. However, these forms of antidotes are really understood more as a kind of antidotes that act more in the form of suppression rather than total eradication. Whereas if you look at the view type afflictions, which are afflicted forms of intelligence, given that there are forms of intelligence, their antidotes must also take similar form of application of intelligence. So the principal antidotes here are more of a wisdom type practices, and so these are also antidotes which are eliminating antidotes, eradicating antidotes.
nyumu chaya rishi sungi harwa, chani li zane, kwa tsikse nali ya, ini, chi dacha da shedang da, desi nyambulu sung sheba di, ini, dacha nyambulu sung sheba di, shedang nyambulu chukuma risi. Penang nga zu samdang na, dacha nyambulu ya midugu kumya, 되게 믿고 보면 뒤 직선은 양 시단 폐야 그냥 그 배지야. 다 시단 그냥 몰려 잡고 보면 생각이 야 잡고 고민도 전에 가서서는 잡고 폐야 그냥 그 요래다. 그래서 이번 인도산에 간다 차단 그냥 뭐 손셔디 야가 직주 소리 용 말해 있어. 다 데모 그냥 뭐 손디 녀모 현다 상물을 베게 가서 베게 내용 그랬어. 가서는 녀모디 상물로 자 아니 디모 된질이야 된대요 그랬어. 그래서 간다변은 차당 가서도 사 냠용 단에도 사무실 담에네 야고 상담은 펼치 즉 강성아주 시트하지 아래 차당께서 유들이야 그 지금 유담바와 속도가
nature of the afflictions when they arise, we can at least make some estimation as to how delusion or grasping at true existence serves as the basis for their arising. For example, when we have strong emotion towards an object, say an attachment or anger, underlying that emotion or emotional reaction is an assumption of some kind of solid reality to which we are reacting to, which presupposes a notion of an independent or truly existing object. So here, therefore, the moment we are able to bring in the wisdom element and reveal the constructed nature of that object that we are reacting to, then the grip of our grasping tends to get released, lessened. So, for example, Nagarjuna in his 15th chapter on fundamental wisdom of the middle way, when defining the notion of svabhava, in intrinsic nature, he says intrinsic nature presupposes something that is unconstructed, and something that is independent. So, and the implication here is that, when we emotionally react to something, we tend to presuppose that object that we are reacting to be independent and unconstructed, something that is solid and concrete. And therefore, the moment we are able to lessen that grasping at the solidity and dismantle that concreteness, then it has the effect of loosening that grip. So the wisdom which is presented as the antidote against delusion is the wisdom realizing dependent origination in terms of emptiness. And so here, in fact, an old scientist that I met a couple of years ago, in our discussion, he told me that, and he's a psychoanalyst, and he told me that when an individual experiences a strong anger towards another person, at that moment, he or she projects especially when he experiences hatred, he or she perceives a quality of undesirableness in the object, and within that perception, 90% of the quality that we attribute to that object is a mental projection. So this is, of course, he's not talking from the Buddhist understanding, he's talking as a scientist, and this view fits really well with the basic Buddhist understanding of the arising of the afflictions, where underlying attachment and aversion are what is called false attention, false attentional processes, and which then gives rise to the emotional reactions. So the Buddhist understanding fits really well with the modern scientific understanding of these emotions as well. So then in the Lam Rim text, after having explained the nature of these afflictions, Tsongkhapa goes on to explain how these afflictions then give rise to committing of volitional actions, the karmic actions.
That is nicht wahr. That la sosu ganda de niba te la sosu sat. La sosu gi koya zon du sit sa on za shi bu lung di che. Ba nyumong so asen. 다음에 또 민가세. 다 요거 망치가는 상으로
So the next outline is identifying the afflictions, and broadly 10 types of afflictions are identified, 5 which belongs to the category of view, and 5 which are non-view afflictions. But actually, experientially speaking, when it comes to afflictions, this is a category of phenomena which we are all very familiar with.
If we analyze carefully in our experience, then it's quite clear. If we pay attention, then I think it's quite clear. Most disturbances of mind is those negative emotions. We call nyumo. Lokang jena, rang jun de kansa, muji baching, nyumo baching, nyumos, yaudo.
So these kaleshas, or nyonmong in Tibetan, afflictions which as Asanga defined, these are mental states whose arising these are mental states arising these are mental states arising of which create a disturbance within the mental continuum of the individual. So these are the afflictions or nyomong.
따왕가도 때민가스 때민이 요모사들이 그럴로고 정신이다 그러 다른 시소래 그 가서래 내봤다나 숙성부 장한되겠지 배지면들이 다 따오르 교배 요몬들이 싫은 요모셔서도 와. 거기에 땀나는지 거기에 장되겠지. 자, 저는 이루산에 그한다 가서 그래 실험이 뭐지 이디 신제요래 사다 디년부터에 거를 리그도 메다스도와 배는 시장에 년부 참바 대장은 미국 거면서 대주체들 순집에 년부 쓰기요래 다 실험이 뭐지 년부터 배지 실험을 저 공면서 배지 인설이 그렇게 방제 초회 친절로 가서 내가 장당에 지기 그다 싫어서 그래 지금 민주산에 실험이 뭐 사용하는 인도산에 거의 년배 초대에 그 가서 그게 실험을 했고 배주고 해서 자단 유목은 남이 치야 돼 개심을 하셔.
So one important point to understand from the basic distinction that is drawn between those afflictions which belong to the class of views and those afflictions which are classified as non-view, I think there is an important